Welcome back to GA Fan TV. I'm delighted to be joined here by former Galway hurler and What's the Score founder, Paul Flaherty, to run through all the weekend's hurling championship action. There was certainly a lot of big games obviously on at the weekend with the Munster and Leinster round robins obviously starting. You had big wins in there for the likes of Limerick and Tipperary, and of course in Leinster, big results for Galway and Kilkenny, and obviously the Dubs, I suppose, failing to beat Antrim. That game obviously finishing as a draw. So I suppose first of all, Paul, how's tricks with yourself? And I suppose great to have the championship back. Like the league's all well and good, but the championship really is where it's at, especially in hurling, anyways.
Yeah, thanks very much, Aaron, for having me on. It was great to have the hurling started there. You know, it's earlier than previous years, which is a bit of a difference. But it's great. It's great to have it, and definitely the Munster Championship just definitely didn't disappoint in terms of action and a lot of talking points and stuff like that. So it was a good start to the hurling.
Absolutely. And I suppose we'll start with the Clare Tipperary game. It was obviously Clare 323, Tipperary 5 goals and 22 points. I suppose a big result for Tipperary. Like I was looking at it there, the record in Cusack Park is actually quite good. They beat them the last time they played them as well in 2019 down in Ennis, and like it probably wasn't Tipperary's best performance in the world, but those early 3 goals, like Clare probably more so imploded on themselves, but a big win for Tip nonetheless.
Yeah, Tipperary, and they look really sharp. I thought, I watched it there, and they have a great strength and depth in their panel. I think I know Liam Call's only in there for the first year, but it seems like there's a lot of a good blend of young and experienced lads there within the Tipperary team. Like so 5-22. Serious scoring, they got off to a great start with and Jake Morris and Jason Ford inside, like they're really lethal. So Tipperary will be definitely happy. Clare, I know they lost and they scoring 323. Like it's like Limerick won and they only scored 118, and Clare got 323 and still were come up short. So it's great. Clare must think it's great scoring and they're probably proud of themselves, but now they have to face Limerick next weekend, and if they lose that, they're really struggling. Then they have to get results versus Cork and Waterford. So the Munster Championship it's cutthroat, and you'd have to feel for Clare putting in such a big score. They didn't get anything out of it, but Tip were fantastic, and it scores all around the field, so they deserve the win overall.
Yeah, and I suppose because it was those 3 goals really that killed them, wasn't it, in the opening quarter of the game? Like they never really recovered after that, and obviously a new goalkeeper in there, I suppose making his championship debut, definitely didn't go according to plan for himself anyway. But at the same time, Tipperary were ruthless, and you have to commend them for that.
Yeah, exactly, and I think they got they had a couple of maybe other slight goal chances, but all them 5 chances that they got, they took them, and that's what wins games. Goals are in hurling these days. Points are goals are so hard to come by that they're nearly worth nearly 4 or 5 points with momentum as you get a goal. So it's a real it's really positive, and it's a real significant attribute that Tipperary have to be so clinical in front of goal, and they'll be really happy with that. But in terms of the modern day hurling and playing out from the back there, for Clare's, I'm not sure it was the second or the third goal. It's if you're not, I think the goalie was looking for the referee to blow his whistle, and I think there are a lot of players, club and county, you're kind of pleading to the ref to buy you a free. Because I don't think the keeper deserved a free. I think the Jake Morris is well entitled. I think he put enough pressure on, hands in, hands out, and just got the flick away of the sliotar, and he put it away then. So I think hurlers, and because I'm playing, we've 2 league games played here with our own club, and I just see it kind of throughout the games in modern hurling, that we're kind of were a bit of a soccer style kind of feel to buy and freeze from the referee. You know, if you kind of you swing your arm up in the air, or if you give a big roar, like, you know, I think that that needs to be. I don't know how to rule it out of it, but like it's not a good stigma to have in the game. And I think that that was a perfect example of just play to the whistle and don't be trying to just do the simple things and get rid of it, and just stop being a bit too smart trying to play out from the back like Man City or someone like that, you know. So yeah, he was especially on his debut, he probably should have just got rid of it and did the like no one would have give out to him if he drove the ball 60 yards up the field, you know. So yeah, he was awful unlucky for giving away that goal.
Yeah, and to be fair to Eamon Footy as well, like he was fairly competitive, and he did play very well throughout the majority of the league as well. So I'm sure it's just a minor setback, and I'm sure he will come stronger next week if he is between the sticks again for the Limerick game next week. But I suppose you said there with Tipperary, like, I mean, obviously they were the last team other than Limerick to win the All Ireland in 2019. They have a lot of the older guard and some of those players in there, like Shamie Callan and Noel McGrath, still knocking about. Obviously, Jake Morris has come in the last couple of years, Conor Bowe, Geroid O'Connor as well. So seems to be a bit of a second coming with Tipperary, like, and that's the thing with Tipperary. Once they get going and once they're at it, like, and with Liam Cahill at the helm as well, who knows the players inside and out, like, they're gonna be a very tough team to beat this year, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think like the a lot of the experienced lads there, like Cahill Barrett, like he was you know, man marking job against Tony Kelly. He got 1 point there in around the 60 whatever minute, like, you know, even though Tony Kelly still influenced the 2 goals, but like he was, you know, he's been there for, you know, doing man marking jobs, and Aaron Glenn, all these top teams, you know, Conor Whelan probably if they play Galway. So you know, Colbert, you've got Michael Breen who's been there knocking great experience there. He's the other cornerback. You've got the mix of like Brian O'Mara, who's after playing the, you know, won a UL captain 2 in a row maybe, and then you've got, as you said, Garrett O'Connor, who's taking the freeze during the league, and, you know, you've got Jason Ford back there again with you know, he's been there relentless through the last number of years, and Jake Morris is coming into fine form as well there. So they really do have a good, and you've got Noel McGrath in at the middle of the park, who can just string the game, like, you know, just his awareness, experience, you know, pick the ball out to John McGrath, and, you know, they've been playing together for years. So they're really strong. And then you see the lads that kind of have come in terms of like Shane Ryan there, who came in, got a 1-1. You know, the Alan Tynan, who started, got a point, was very influential as well. So Tipp really do, even though it's Liam Cahill's first year, as I kind of said earlier on, they really do have a good strength and depth, you know, in their panel. So I think every team will be looking at them, and I think they have a week off now in the Munster Championship, which is great timing. So they can recover this week and they can see how the results go between Limerick and Clare and Cork and Waterford, and, you know, like study them 4 teams and see how they target the following 3 weeks after for their championship. So I think they're in a really strong position after yesterday.
Absolutely. And Fionn says here, Clare have Limerick next, so they could lose 2 games in a row, so they could be in a spot of bother. And I suppose that's the point, isn't it? Like Clare, as you said, like actually done quite well, like after conceding those early goals, like they hit 1-3 or they hit 6 points, I think, in a row without response, and they went on a good run after that and actually competed very well with Tipperary, in fairness. But it is just such a cutthroat championship, and the fact that they have Limerick next to be fair, probably actually weren't at their best, and we'll get onto them in a couple of minutes' time as well against Waterford. But like it's going to be tough for Clare, and when you do lose those opening 2 games, although Cork, you know, lost their opening 2 last year and turned it around, you know, you're relying on results elsewhere then as well, and score difference and everything else. So like it'll be tough for Clare.
Yeah, and they'll just feel so hard done by, because after getting 3-23 and still losing no points, you're playing the All Ireland champions who didn't play well, that will look to absolutely bounce back and make a statement. I'm nearly sure they're at home in Gaelic grounds. So obviously there'll be Clare's not too far away, so there will be a mixed crowd. But I'm sure Limerick will have a slight majority in the stadium. So it's going to be cutthroat. Yeah, it's just like even though Tony Kelly wasn't the usual, like we expect such high standards from him, he was influential in the 2 goals. But like Aidan McCarthy, he was absolutely, from frees and from play, I'm not sure exactly what the total was, but he got a phenomenal amount of scores and impacted the play. Mark Rogers came up with 2 vital goals that like I think it was 2:11 to 3:12 at halftime. Like that's 5:23 in one half of hurling. Like it was a pure Munster battle in Ennis. It was a great watch, a fantastic watch. And the likes of Ryan Taylor, Ian Galvin they're all contributing. And even though Peter Duggan and Shane O'Donnell didn't really, like, Shane O'Donnell did a lot of work off the ball, like, there's still improvements there, even though they got 323. So they have a lot to work on, but they'll be confident, I think, going into this Limerick game. Everyone, again, when you play Limerick, no one's going to give you a chance. Limerick have won the league. They're expected to walk the All-Ireland Championship. So, like, Clare, after, I know they've lost, they put in a good shift, did a lot of good things in that game. So they should be going in with a lot of confidence into this match on Saturday. And it's, again, I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be another great Munster match. So it's looking forward to it on Saturday night.
Absolutely. And as you said there, it was Waterford 19 points, Limerick 118, and it was an odd game, as you said, because like such a low scoring game for a hurling match compared to what we're used to seeing in the last couple of years. And obviously the Clare Tipperary game was a perfect example. Clare scoring a total of 323 and Limerick coming out scoring nearly half that and still going on to actually win the game. But yeah, I suppose not the best performance in the world from the All-Ireland champions, and Waterford, like, huge missed opportunity to knock them out with the win.
Yeah, definitely. I think Waterford will be kicking themselves this morning. They really, it was there. It was really there, and you'd have to, like, Davey got a lot of things right in terms of the way he went about the match. A lot of tactics went right, and like Limerick, even though they didn't play well, like that's what champions do. It's they always, like, well, the same can't go for Arsenal, and they're not champions yet, but they drew 3-3 at the weekend. But they just grind it out bit by bit, play by play, and even when it was coming up there towards, I think it was the 67, 68 minute, they just let Conor Gleeson get the puck out. He did a 1-2 with not sure who, and he just soloed up to the 65-yard line and just put the ball over the bar. But Limerick are so knowledgeable and just took the percentage that if they get a point from this, it's okay. We're still 3 points up. We can still grind out this victory if we just hold and make the game scrappy. And that's the word I'd use on that. And definitely the second half, it was very scrappy, like, because the game started with Limerick. They got into a flow. I think it was 5-1. I think they had 5 scoring chances, got them. Limerick had a few wides in the first 10 minutes, so it really, if they got them, there would have been more in it. And then obviously Seamus Flanagan's goal, where he flicked it around the keeper, that got them 1-8 to 3 points. So Waterford were always struggling then, but then I think Stephen Bennett got like 4 or 5 frees in a row, and they were only 6-ish points down then at halftime. And then after halftime, Waterford came out and they just kind of threw the shackles off and said, we're just going to go for this. And they were right in there with they were only down by a point or two. And then, like, after Garrett Hegarty got sent off, the game just got scrappy and messy, and everyone was looking for frees, and the crowd were very involved. And that really suited Limerick, as every play was like delayed by 30 seconds to a minute. If someone got a free, a push in the back, you're complaining to the ref, give him a yellow, all that kind of stuff. So the word I'd use was a very scrappy game. But again, it was a good Munster battle, and it was a good watch as well.
Yeah, like, because it seemed almost like Waterford came with a game plan to probably stifle Limerick, to slow them down, to frustrate them. And then they fell so far behind that I suppose
Mm.
Davey obviously said to the lads at half time, like, you need to change it up here and just go for it. Because at the end of the day, if they kept playing the way they were playing, they would have got bet by probably 10, 15 points. So, and that's the thing about this Waterford side. Like, when they play on the front foot, when they play attacking, it definitely does suit them better. Like, we've seen that under Liam Cahill, and that seems to be maybe a bit of a conundrum for Davy Fitz in terms of what way they want to approach games.
Yeah, because I've listened to a couple of interviews of Davy Fitz, and even on the late, he was saying like that this Waterford team, they're a lot of them have been there for a good number of years, like Jamie Byrne, Austin Gleeson, Stephen Bennett. They're really coming into their prime. So he's like, and they've got obviously a lot of younger lads with the Fitzgerald that's after coming on, and a couple of younger lads like that. So he thinks there is a good mix in there, and he is probably right, but they didn't really gel in the league. They kind of had ups and downs, and there yesterday they came with a game plan. It kind of worked to an extent at times, but it just kind of faded away in the end. And I think just like there was so many kind of silly things there, like in terms of Stephen Bennett had a free, I think it was only like 25 yards out. If he put that ball over, there was a point in it, and then he misses it. The ball goes, I think he hits Jimmer Burns on the head, and it goes down the other end of the pitch. And like that was 2 minutes, I'd say, between Stephen taking the free, Jimmer Burns going on the ground holding his head for another minute, then Aaron Glenn actually going down, taking the free, putting it over is another minute. So like that's a 2 point swing, and there was only 2 points in it at the end. And there was a couple of other things there where they had a lot of wides as well, which they could have they could have got something out of it. So I think overall you'd have to say that Waterford would probably look back in regret at the game. At the middle third was very congested, and like Desi Hutchinson had to come out the field a good bit like to get ball, because it just wasn't coming into his pockets the way he'd like it, So Waterford, they weren't expected to win. They put up a good performance, so they'll just crack into Cork next week, and it's hard to know what Cork are like because you haven't seen them in Championship. I know league is league, but that'll be an interesting game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think so. All right, and I suppose a game that has so much significance as well, like with the fact that Waterford obviously did lose this game to Limerick, and as you said, like they had so many scoring chances towards the end of the game, and so many wides and so many uncharacteristic wides as well. Like I think there was one moment where Desi Hutchinson puts a ball wide, and he was nearly laughing to himself afterwards because he couldn't believe that he'd actually put it wide, and it was just one of those mad games. Like what do you even put that down to? Is it just rustiness, nerves, or were they even surprised that they were sort of getting so close, and maybe they realised that we actually have a chance of beating Limerick here?
I think that was it. Yeah, I think it was just surprise because, I think there was another flick there where Austin Gleeson tried to flick it over his head for a point, and just went wide, like really uncharacteristic kind of stuff there. And I think they just got too wound up. I think as well, just after again when Hegarty got sent off, and there was just a lot of niggling off the ball, which we didn't see on the screens or whatever. But like, it just seemed that they were just surprised, wound up, just it was there for them, and it's just a pity, like, because you'd wonder how if you just wonder how would Waterford progress if they actually got the win or the result there. Would, like, cause if Tipperary played Limerick and they bet them because they're in such great form, where would that leave Limerick? So it's Munster, as it was always going to be interesting from the get go, and it definitely hasn't let up. So it's definitely interesting to see how it progresses.
Yeah, comment here from John who says no Hannon to Burka, huge loss, not entertaining, savage battle. And yeah, like obviously Toig de Burka, his injury, like I mean he's been so unlucky with injuries the last couple of years. Obviously Torres Cruciate, I think in 2020, I think 2018 was another big injury as well. So like he's so unlucky, and you hope you see him come back from it. But it's like when you have with all these injuries build up, and like you just hope he recovers soon enough. And obviously a huge miss now for Waterford for the remainder of the Munster Championship.
Yeah, I'm 30 and I don't have any injuries, but I'm struggling to stay going. So I can feel for tight work there to see, this is another massive setback there, and it's a like a centre back is he's going to be your playmaker, your sweeper, especially modern hurling where the cornerback kind of gives it out to the half back line or the midfield, and they build the score from there. They either they play it through the lines to the wing forwards or the centre forward, or they hit it in long into the full forward and the two corners where the space is. So he's going to be like he's a great distributor of ball. He's going to be massively missed for his reading of the game, especially for let's say when Limerick have two lads inside, Ty DeBurka would go left or right, where the cornerbacks would tell him to go, and he cut out the play. So that's going to be a massive void to fill and a headache for Davy Fitz. And the flip side there, like for Limerick, they've Declan Hannon went out of the team, but like it just felt like and someone of the exact same quality just filled in, and they knew exactly what they were doing. It didn't seem like he was. He is a miss, but they didn't seem like they missed him as much as Ty DeBurka did for Limerick. So that just goes to show the strength and depth in Limerick. The big lads coming on like Carl O'Neill and all these men as well. So it's Limerick grind out the victory. As I said, everyone thinks they're going to walk the championship. It didn't go. It didn't. They got well tested. They stood up, but to make the championship even more interesting. I love to see someone taking over Limerick, and but it's hard to see at the minute. But we'll see how the championship progresses.
Yeah, what did you make of some of the antics? Obviously on the sideline, I think it was one of Waterford's backroom team that swung the hurl towards Grode Hegarty, I think, as he was getting his marching orders. Like, obviously got a bit confrontational down there, and there was a few players obviously getting involved, and I think Davey wasn't short of it. I was surprised not to see him jump in the middle of it, to be honest with you, but maybe he saw it late. But it was definitely a bit mad, all right, watching it, I suppose, on the TV.
Yeah, I think Davey was cute enough to know that Hegarty was going. If he got involved, maybe something might get reversed, or I think he knew well that like Hegarty is gone here. Like it was the challenge was right in front of him. Like even if Hegarty didn't have a yellow, it could have went to the straight red because he just kind of laid in like really high speed, really dangerous, straight into the helmet there, into the jaw of I think it was Darragh Lyons. I think that got the end of it. So. Your man coming down and like Garrett Hegarty knew he was innocent. He only kind of touched him, like compared to what Garrett Hegarty did 10 seconds before that. He only got a touch on his chest and he went down, pleaded that as if there was something wrong with him. So I don't think anything was wrong with Garrett Hegarty. I think he was just looking for sympathy, which I don't think only Limerick people would give him. So it was a 100% correct call. You put no complaints about it. It's just a pity that I don't think Waterford really they didn't capitalize on it. Like I think they didn't know what to do with their spare man, or because Limerick just kind of sat back and they just left obviously Gillan and Flanagan, who were just unreal inside. Like I know they leave so much space in there, but they were a man down and they were still winning ball there. So it's just a pity Waterford couldn't capitalize on it. But the antics of Garrett Hegarty, there's no complaints. It could have been a straight red if he didn't have a yellow already.
Yeah, and I suppose John Coyley's comments post-match were a little bit interesting as well. He was obviously very animated, and he was obviously speaking about the fact that everyone's very much backing Limerick to win the All-Ireland and saying they're going to walk the All-Ireland. And he was saying, everyone's trying to create Limerick as this type of unstoppable team, and that really isn't the case. And this obviously proves that. So, like, interesting comments from him. And I was kind of thinking as well, like, in some ways, this result might actually be the perfect thing for Limerick, because they had a tough test. They didn't play particularly well in the second half. They definitely made a lot more errors than what we'd usually associate with them. But at the same time, they didn't get beat. So, like, they're going into that Clare game with a win under their belt and a lot to improve on.
Yeah, and I was saying earlier, that's what I kind of fear for Clare. Like Clare got 3-23, and they put in such a good performance and no points. Now they have to play as Limerick, who didn't play well. A lot of media attention is always on them, but a bit more now since they didn't actually play well. Is there an opportunity for them to actually get overturned? That's what John Kiley will be pumping into the players all week, So yeah, he was very interesting, but sure, he's not going to say, oh yeah, we are going to. He's just playing a bit of a fool's game there. So yeah, that's what a good manager would do. I'd do the same if I was over them. So yeah, they didn't play well. Like the first half, I think would have went not exactly, but good enough for Limerick. They would have been 6 points up. They got a goal, didn't concede a goal. They didn't play well. They played well enough in the first half. So it was just the second half where. It's just a pity Waterford didn't. They did throw off the shackles. They got really close, but it's just a pity they didn't get over the line.
Yeah, test case says here Waterford because it could have easily won against Limerick. They missed lots of chances. Seamus Flanagan obviously getting a red card as well. And Colm says here, first time ever seeing John Kiley a bit rattled. Yeah, like I suppose you'd imagine he was probably upset with his team's performance. I'd imagine probably as well, and frustration probably coming out in different ways. But with the fact that they weren't particularly brilliant in the second half, would there be much concern there from a Limerick perspective, or do you think it is just a case of one-off performance? And I suppose they still won the game, so you'd imagine there'd be considerable improvements going in next week.
Yeah, and you probably their character was well tested, especially when they were down to 14 men. They could have easily, this isn't their day. Waterford are flying here. It could have been easy to bow down, but in 7 minutes of added time, a lot of pressure would have been on them. But you've got to look at that side. They did very well. So I think it's actually a good thing for Limerick. I'd be really happy if I was a Limerick hurling fan. Didn't play well in the second half. Got 2 points into Clare at home next weekend with a point to prove. They're going to be bouncing. I doubt Declan Hannon will be back for it, but someone, as I said, someone else will probably fill in there. So. I'd say John Kiley was just a bit upset with their team performance, and they just didn't play. But it's always good. It's a good sign of champions that you win when you don't play well. So you will be concerned, but they've had a great league campaign. They've already played good hurling this year and have a trophy already underneath. So I don't think he'd be too worried. Really.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. And I suppose to make the comparison with the Dublin footballers, obviously from watching the Dublin footballers down the years, there was plenty of times down the years during that 6 in a row spell where we didn't play well, and sometimes you need a bit of luck and you need to win ugly, and there was plenty of times Dublin did do that, and obviously it's something we're seeing Limerick do now as well. And John Coleman says here, if you were there, the off the ball stuff was great, and just glad to get the points and get out. Yeah, and I think that is the main thing, in fairness, from a Limerick perspective. I suppose looking at the Leinster round robin games, then it was a big win obviously for Galway. They beat Wexford 24 points to 2-12. Obviously a couple of early goals for Wexford, Liam McGovern and Conor McDonald, obviously setting Galway back a little bit. And I suppose at half time it was looking a little bit worrying maybe from a Galway perspective, but in the second half a top class performance, and in the end it was actually a pretty comfortable win for yourselves.
Yeah, interesting start to the game. Yeah, definitely going two goals down in the first 3 or 4 minutes. The high ball coming in for Conor McDonald, and Liam there bursting through and getting the goal. So it wasn't a great start, and it was a Midland day in Pearse Stadium there. So it was an awful weird game. You'd think that Wexford would kind of push on, or they kind of have that cushion of a 6 to maybe 4 point lead. But Galway just tagged them back, and Evan Island was absolutely superb in the forward line. Conor Whelan and Brian Cannon doing their contributing to the scoreboard as well. So Wexford, they only got at half time, we were a bit worried, and there was a bit of a tension between Cyril Donlan and the Wexford manager as they went into the tunnel there. But again, kind of like Waterford in the second half, Galway kind of just powered out at the start of the second half, and they just tagged on about 6 or 7 scores, and that was it. Like Wexford had no answer. There was no bite to them in the second half, and they always had that kind of cushion then of 6 or 7 points going into the last 20 minutes in the second half, and the game kind of petered out then. So kind of disappointed in Waterford a bit on not being biased. Like I just thought they might be getting the 2 goals. They only got 5 points after that. Then you'd expect them to kick on a bit and have a big second half, especially away from home. But Galway just powered out, and as you said, it just kind of petered out the last 20 minutes. Galway just kept tagging on scores, and it was kind of a bit of a challenge match towards the end of it. So but from a Galway perspective, got the win, 24 points, probably no real goal. Obviously didn't get a goal and no real goal chances as well. Might be a small bit concerning, but I think if you had to compare Munster and Leinster is obviously a bit easier to get to the quarterfinals or semi-finals of the All-Ireland Championship. So they've got a big game next against Kilkenny, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, and you made a good point there. Like that did surprise me as well, like towards the last 15, 20 minutes. Like there seemed like a real lack of urgency maybe from Wexford. Like they weren't, usually in these sort of obviously it's not a championship knockout game, and obviously with the way the Leinster round robin is compared to the Munster round robin, maybe that's why Wexford weren't going full tilt. But like usually you'd see, balls floating in around the square, an increase of, trying to create goal chances. But that wasn't the case at all. And it was a little bit surprising from Wexford point of view that they didn't really put the foot on the pedals. And like maybe it's down to the Leinster round robin with the fact that obviously Dublin drawing with Antrim as well. Like it probably, it gives them a bit more of an advantage there.
Yeah, maybe, but I think maybe Wexford are time in the run, because I know like in the league they weren't you weren't really confident about their performances or the year ahead, because they didn't really do well in the league. So it is a bit worrying. I hope maybe they're just timing just want to get to the second place, third place in the round robin in the Leinster, and then go all guns blazing for the quarterfinal, semi-final, and take everyone by the prize. Like that's what I just thought about Wexford. And that's I watched it obviously, but like a lot of people that I know were there, and I was talking to them on Sunday and today, and they just said that like there was a lack of bite in the game. Like it didn't feel like a championship game. Galway, whenever Evan Island wanted to score, or there wasn't any big hits or anything like that, especially for championship match. So no Lee Chin, obviously probably a big personnel that they needed there. He looked like he was going to come on, but I think the way the second half, like Galway just got like 6 or 7 points in a row, and I don't think they chanced him because for the last 10 minutes, because the game was kind of gone away from them at that stage. So that's it's just a bit disappointing from the Wexford side of things, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and Galway will be happy with the win.
Yeah, Colm says here, Galway for highest expectations, Henry's second year need, Leinster championship minimum. I suppose, there probably is like a good bit more pressure on Galway this year, I suppose, as opposed to last year. Obviously, with it being Henry Shefflin's first year, I felt like there was more so a building in process, maybe a bit of a transition. And obviously that win against Wexford, like it sets you up perfectly now. Like you'd imagine at least getting to a Leinster final now surely would have to be the minimum after that victory yesterday.
Yeah, anything below a Leinster like final, it would be awful disappointing, and I can't see it at the minute. Next Sunday at 2:00 will be very interesting down in Nolan Park. It was great to have Carl Mannion starting as well. He was missing for nearly all the league there, so like he can score from anywhere. I know I tried to mark him a good few times. He's an awful tricky player, so he's very, very skillful and a great. He's a great plus for, especially when David Burke is injured as well. So Galway will be pretty happy. Henry has a second year under his belt. He obviously his first year, it's all about learning probably the players and trying to get the right formation, the right team, the right personnel in the right places. So he switched Gareth McInerney and Dahi I think the first ball, I think Conor McDonald stood on Garage McInerney, which happens, and he was holding his ankle, but these things happen. He recovered well and had a good game. So, and Dahi's out to 6. A lot of the puck outs, a lot of Dahi got like a lot of puck outs there in the match. So I don't know who was centre forward for Wexford, where they dropped him back, where they've been a sweeper, but I don't think it really worked. I don't think whatever tactics they were trying to do, I don't think it really benefited to what they were trying to do. And then you had TJ Brennan, who was cornerback. He got the first score of the game. He was good. Jack Grealish, Tigerish as well. So they have a lot of players. They've got and again, you've got the stalwarts there, Pádraig Mannion, Conor Whelan, Conor Cooney. They've been around for many years. So and then you've got Evan Nyland and other lads that are kind of coming there as well. So they'll be really happy. Just I think the only thing will be probably not a lot of goal chances. 24 points is good, but create a few more goal chances. And I think next Sunday versus Kilkenny will be a big test to see where they're at.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose like when you look at some of Kilkenny's results against Galway in the last couple of years, obviously beating them in the Leinster final. I know obviously you beat them obviously in the league stage last season as well. But like it's a massive game, and it's like when you look at it, there's probably a few teams that are under the bracket of Limerick that are competing maybe to be the closest challengers, and Galway and Kilkenny might very well be the two closest teams to them at this moment in time.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a controversial handshake like there was last year next Sunday between, because you don't have Brian Cody, you've Derek Ling there, so I think they'll be happy enough to shake hands. But Kilkenny, like they had a good league. The league final was a bit disappointing. Limerick just powered through them. So I think they will. They obviously had a good victory against Westmeath. 29 points is good scoring. They'll be this will be a good game, but there could be a bit of shadowboxing, as well as they probably see each other playing against each other again in whatever 5 or 6 weeks time in the Leinster final. So there may be a bit of shadowboxing in this game, but all the same, they'll still, both teams will. You never go out and not try to win anyway. Just they might hold a few personnels back on their side. So they both have nothing to lose. They'll go hammer and tongs. They'll probably try and figure out a couple of things that the other teams are trying to do, and try and utilize that in 5 or 6 weeks time for the Leinster final. Probably more than likely the two of them will get there, but that's Galway. It should be a good game, and Nolan Park is always a hard place to go. So should be a good game.
Yeah, Colm says here, can you imagine if Henry didn't shake his hand? That would definitely be definitely a plot twist for the ages there, if that definitely did happen. John says here, Kilkenny can afford to peak just once, like last year's final. Henry is in the same boat, and nobody knows this better than he does. Munster teams have to peak twice minimum, and I suppose that is the point. Like Galway didn't look at their best against Wexford, and Wexford didn't look at their best either. And you could say the same for Kilkenny probably against Westmeath as well. Like, because of the way the Leinster round robin is structured, it means that these sides don't really have to be at their best until Leinster final or possibly beyond that.
Yeah, and that's like you talk about Waterford and Clare. Like they had to be at their best last weekend. Like they're priming themselves with the 23rd of June or 23rd of April. Like for the first round of the championship. Galway, like it's probably not fair in a way, like, because they're probably trying to prime themselves for 5 or 6 weeks down the line. These are kind of good challenge matches that they're having. So it's a bit, the Munster is way tougher than it is for the Leinster, and for if Kilkenny or Galway, if they have kind of lads that have niggles or anything like that, they can rest them. If Kilkenny had, it's obviously good to get TJ Reid playing, give him because he didn't get a lot of league game. But like if there's other players, like for example, if Adrian Mullen had a bit of a hamstring strain or whatever, you can leave him off against Antrim, Dublin, Westmeath, whoever it may be, and make sure that he's right for 5 or 6 weeks time. Whereas if Tony Kelly had a bit of a strain in his leg, you have to play him. You're playing against Tipperary. It's in Ennis. You have to throw him in there. You have to put your best foot forward. So it is a bit, it's a lot tougher for the Munster teams than it is for the Leinster. But it probably will be Galway and Kilkenny. And going back to your last question there, in terms of are they in the mix for the All Ireland, they probably are. It's whoever comes out of Munster, and Galway, Kilkenny is probably they're going to be the teams in the mix. And with the extra weeks that Kilkenny or Galway have, they probably have a slight edge on the other teams that come out, like Tipperary and these teams. So it's definitely an interesting championship. And I know Limerick everyone is tipping them to win, but after last weekend, it does kind of it's not. I think it's it's not pretty open, but it's a bit more open than everyone thinks. It's going to be an interesting hurling championship for sure.
Absolutely. And I suppose moving on to some of the other games in the Leinster round robin, then it was Antrim 119, Dublin 119. I suppose a surprising result in some ways. Obviously, when you look at Dublin versus Antrim in the last couple of years, obviously Dublin have sort of have the better of Antrim. But at the same time, going to Corrigan Park, like I was saying even in the preview show, like before the games, it's always a sticky place to go to. We've seen Clare get caught there before. I think Wexford failed to come out of there one year with a win. A difficult place to go to, and I suppose like a late Keane O'Sullivan point there, I think got Dublin the draw in the end. So Antrim probably even disappointed that they didn't even get the win here.
Yeah, I think, and I know it's a bit of a surprise, when you say, oh, it's a surprise that Dublin only got the draw, but I don't really think it is in terms of, it's Michael Donoghue's first year. He didn't really have a good league campaign, so if you base it off that, they weren't going in with good form. They going up to Corrigan Park, as I said, like Antrim gave a lot of the tipped senior inter-county teams a good run for their money this year in the league, so I don't think it was that much of a surprise, and I think you're right there in terms of like Antrim are probably going to be very disappointed. A late Donald Burke goal, he got 1-9, in the match, like he's very influential, and then Keane O'Sullivan who got 5 or 6 from play, and he got one of the last ones there to draw it. So I think Antrim will be a bit disappointed with that, and they'll be a test for. I think they'll give it to Kilkenny and they'll give it to Galway as well, and when Antrim play Wexford, they could sneak the third place there in the round robin. So, and the Wexford and Dublin game is going to be very interesting as well. So, it's a draw. I think Dublin will be much the happier, but I think Michael Donoghue is going to have to try and regroup and get these lads on the same hymn sheet, because they're going to struggle to get out of Leinster if they don't pull up their socks.
Yeah, and I suppose obviously you know Micheál Donoghue very well, obviously since playing under him in 2017. Obviously when Galway won the All Ireland that year, and he's obviously a famous figure in Galway hurling circles, and obviously first season on the job, it's he's obviously had to learn a lot in terms of the new Dublin players obviously coming into the team, and there's obviously been a bit of a transition in the last couple of years in terms of the 2013 crop are sort of slowly being phased out, and there's a few other younger players coming in. So, like, is there a reason to panic from a Dublin point of view just yet, do you think, or what do you reckon?
It's hard to say. Definitely as the first year. Like Micheál, he expects a serious standard, especially in training. He doesn't like any half-assed kind of stuff. He won't accept. So I'm sure they're training hard. I'm sure their in-house games are up to a very good standard as well. But it's just not shown in the league form, and definitely not last weekend. So. It's probably a bit concerning for this year, but I hope it's not like the Premier League where after 1 year, if they don't get any results, he's out the door. I think this is going to be a bit of a 2 or 3 year job, because there's a lot of names that didn't there's a lot of Dublin hurlers that didn't put their names forward, to be on this panel for the year. So I think he's a bit of work to do. For this year, I think Dublin, it is a bit concerning that they haven't hit any form in the league and the first game of the championship. So it's hard to know how they'll get on the Leinster final or the Leinster round robin.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe just finishing up then on Antrim, like, I mean, as we were saying there, like unlucky maybe not to come out with the win, and maybe it is slightly disrespectful to think that Dublin should just rock up there and it should be an easy win or whatever. Like, and you're looking at it and thinking, Antrim maybe might start looking at it and thinking they might have a chance of actually getting out of this Leinster Championship. Like, I'm not too sure what their other home game is, but they'll be looking at it and thinking, like, if they can get something off Wexford, then they have a huge chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like they'll take great confidence from that match. It probably is. They'll probably be kicking themselves they didn't win, but like a lot of their hurlers were in Croke Park, for the All Ireland club semi final there, and Keelan Malloy got a super goal, and Colin Cunning was on the freeze for Antrim, and he was on the freeze for the club as well. So they've got they've got bags of experience there. They've got, like, any of them hurlers would make Galway, Wexford, Tipp, Clare, inter-county teams, so they have a lot of quality players. It's they just have to. Darren Gleeson's doing a good job. So if they do go down to if it is in Wexford or if it's at home, that's a huge game there. Wexford are seriously under pressure now against Dublin and against Antrim. So it'll be interesting. They'll be the dark horses to get for third spot to get out of Leinster, and if they do, it's not that shocking. I don't think. I think they've put in a lot of work over the last few years, and as I said, Darren Gleeson's doing a great job, and a lot of their players have been thereabouts the last few years, and their club championship when they win in the All Ireland semi final. They put up a great showing as well, and a lot of them players are on the Antrim team. So it wouldn't be surprising if they come third, and it'll be interesting to see how they get on.
Yeah, and actually just looking at it there, it's actually Wexford against Antrim this weekend as well in Wexford Park. So definitely a game worth keeping an eye on. I suppose finishing up then with a game that very much, a result that we probably all did very much expect. Kilkenny 29 points, Westmeath 7 points. You obviously seen there TJ Reid obviously back for Kilkenny. He had 9 points on the day. The likes of Adrian Mullen, Owen Cody all starting there as well. So yeah, comfortable, comprehensive as you'd expect, and yeah, like it's probably for a lot of the big teams going up against Westmeath, it's probably going to be similar score lines. I know they drew with Wexford last year and showed some good signs, but generally you'd expect these type of score lines.
Yeah, Wexford or Westmeath now will be interesting again this year, but Kilkenny had a great they had a very good league campaign. They want to they obviously want to put a stamp on things. The new manager, there's a lot, like Timmy Clifford was wing forward. There's a lot of new players that want to put their name on the scoring sheet. And even Billy Drennan wasn't playing, and he was he's a great young prospect there for Kilkenny as well. So they do have they have a lot of great players like Billy Ryan, Mikey Butler, Richie Reid, Brian Owen Cody there as well. So they have a lot of good players, and I think Kilkenny will be experienced from the All Ireland last year. They'll be in around the mix. So they probably will be putting teams like Westmeath, Dublin, Antrim. They'll put them away fairly easily, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, I'm seeing Billy Drennan was out with an injury as well. So that's the thing with Kilkenny from watching them this year. Like, they've a wealth of options now. Like, their panel has improved even more with some of the under 20 lads. Obviously coming into the side, I've seen David Blanchfield was playing. Dara Corcoran was on the pitch there as well. So they've a lot of options, and probably one of the best squads in the country. Like, if you're to look at it player for player.
Yeah, and you've got Richie Hogan, who's still around. You've got Walter Walsh, who has several All Irelands as well, and then you've got a lot of the Ballyhale Shamrocks lads, as you just said, like Corcoran and obviously Owen Cody and lads like that, Paddy Mullen. So they've got a big panel, and they'll be thereabouts, and there'll be a test for any side in the quarterfinals, semi-finals of the All Ireland Championship.
Yeah, just a few comments to run through here. Colm said earlier, Wexford, Antrim, Dublin is the only real qualifying storyline in Leinster, unfortunately, but it is a great battle. Hope it comes down to the last weekend. It usually does, in fairness, in the Leinster Championship. And have Dublin ever played a home championship game in Croke Park? Hope the Dubs come out to support them. Otherwise, might be a dead event. Yeah, no, it is a fair point, and I don't think they have, like, obviously they've played in Croke Park numerous times in neutral games or whatever, as the spin is, but in terms of an actual official home game, I can't remember the last time that's been the case. So yeah, like even thinking about it there, like Croke Park, like probably doesn't even suit the Dublin hurlers as well. Like they nearly want to be in Parnell Park where it's a tighter pitch. The atmosphere, the fans can get, have a bit more of an impact. So like I was surprised that they moved them to the Croke Park, to be honest.
Yeah, was it during COVID? I think did they move a couple of games there or something?
They did actually, yeah, they did.
Yeah, I think so. I think they played Kilkenny and they thought it would suit, and I think Kilkenny just absolutely just went through them for a shortcut then, so yeah, I'd say Parnell Park definitely a better place for jump. In Parnell Park, the Dubs have to come out and force their hurling fans, really get behind them and kind of frighten the opposition, whoever it is that's playing them. So yeah, the third place is kind of like Newcastle, Tottenham, Liverpool, whoever's trying to get to the Champions League spot. That's that kind of third spot there in Leinster, which is kind of the battle there, because I think Galway and Kilkenny will be either whoever comes first or second. I think that's just going to be the order. So yeah, it is going to be interesting to see who comes third in Leinster.
Absolutely. I suppose I'll just run through some of the results there, just read out some of the results quickly before we finish up from the Joe McDonagh Cup. So it was Kildare 14 points, Kerry 117, Carlow and Laois drawn 122 apiece, and a big win for Offaly there, beating down 126 to 114. So Offaly and Kerry sitting in the top two spaces there at the minute. Laois, which was one win from their opening three, which I suppose is a little bit surprising there as well. And John says here, Dubs are second in the roll of honour in Leinster. They can do it again. Yeah, I suppose we maybe are, in fairness, but there you go. But yeah, I suppose cheers very much, Paul, for coming on. I suppose if people are looking to find what's the score, obviously plenty of games going on up and down the country, obviously club games as well. Where can people find it?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. Yeah, the What's the Score app is live there on the iOS and Android app stores there. So, and we also have a website there. You can find out more information, whatsthescore.ie there. So, lots of games, very busy time for the app at the minute. So, if you want to log on, you'll find all the scores there.
Brilliant. Well, cheers very much, Paul, for coming on, and cheers anyone who tuned into the show. If you could hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff, be very much appreciated. And cheers, Paul, for coming on.